Like Tulsky should be, for a lot of people, the most interesting general manager in the NHL right now today.
So what do you think about Rantanen? Like, would you
I love
deal
him.
him?
Love
Yeah.
him. Love him. Love him.
Worth
Love him. Love him.
north of
Love him.
12
Love
million?
love him. Love him. Yes. And the thing about the Carolina Hurricanes that I think we don't talk about enough, and in some ways it's interesting, Pete. The Avalanche are the same way. Whenever there's a big name that's available, very quietly, because generally it doesn't get out, Carolina's always in there, right? Carolina was in on Eichel, just like the Avalanche are in on a lot of big players as well. Like, I believe before he signed with the Rangers, Artemi Panarin was offered, like, it was a 3-year deal with a higher AAV than what he ended up taking with the New York Rangers. Like, it's funny that these two teams made this deal, all three, when you consider the broker here in Chicago. But these are two teams that are very sneaky, always big game hunting. Always big game hunting. And the Carolina Hurricanes have always been in there. I know that there's always Dundon's not going to pay. Dundon's not going to pay. Well, that's not true. Tom Dundon, the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, always has in his mind the value, the worth of a player. But I don't think he's past, recognizing the greatness that is Mikko Rantanen, much like he would have also recognized the greatness of Jack Eichel and paid accordingly. He just doesn't want to overpay.
Mm-hmm.
But you have a guy that's going in the Hall of Fame one day here. You have a guy that's still in his prime career who's putting up century marks every year. You have someone in here that's going to help you in the playoffs. It's like you just keep going and the biggest and is these guys don't become available. Right? Like, this is Eichel trade. This is Thornton trade. This is enormous. One day we're all going to look back and we're going to say, how did Colorado let this guy go? Again, like, I'm not sure how I'm going to ultimately judge this trade. I'm not sure how you guys are going to judge this trade, but I know I'm not going to judge it until I see what happens in the playoffs with the Hurricanes. And I'm not going to judge it until I see what else happens with the Avalanche, because now with some space, I think there'll probably be some other shoes to drop here. But from a Carolina point of view, I go back to something like, there was a podcast that came out in the summer that Eric Tulsky was on. It's the Expected by Whom podcast. And Tulsky made a point, because I think we're all trying to figure, okay, so how's this guy going to operate as a GM? Like, what's his MO here? We saw him let a lot of money leave. Teravainen and Pesci and Shea and Rand. They let a lot of guys go, like a lot of money go. And on the podcast, Tulsky said something that has stuck with me ever since. He said, the question you ask yourself as a manager is, am I just filling holes, or am I trying to make my team better? It's easy just to re-sign guys and say, well, I've got that slot taken care of, but am I really trying to get better? Like, and one of the things that I think the salary cap, again, we'll go back to our original conversation. One of the things I think the salary cap has taught us is, if you have a chance, even as a minuscule chance, to make your team better at any position, given how hard that might be under a salary cap, you do it. And you take that opportunity. And that's why Tulsky, in conversation with LeBron in The Athletic, said, like, look, until I get the 20 top players in the NHL under my salary cap here, there's always work to do. Certainly that's tongue in cheek, but it does hint back at something that he said in the summer on that podcast. And that is, am I just filling a slot, or am I trying to make my team better? And I think that Tulsky's the kind of guy that embraces the idea of letting players walk, because it challenges him to fill that spot or that cap space with something that makes his team better. Like, Tulsky should be, for a lot of people, the most interesting general manager in the NHL right now today, because that's the way this guy thinks.
And there's like an air of mysteriousness
like
around
Danny
him.
Yes.
Where it's like, what is this? He's almost like the new guy showing up to the prison yard, and it feels like he just shanked the biggest guy in the prison yard by this big balls move.
He definitely has prison vibes. You're all right. If you Google Eric Tulsky, you'll be like, whoa, when did I get to prison?
No, but he's right. He's like that. You always see, like, like the big the skinny weightlifter who shows up at Venice Beach and like starts like doing like gorilla presses with more weight than anybody's ever seen before, and then takes off the beard and drops the cane. Like, he's kind of that guy in a lot of ways, because listen, like when anyone comes into the NHL from a non-traditional background, I didn't, shoot frozen cow patties off the side of the barn in Swift Current for 15 years, so I have no right to be a general manager. When anyone comes into the league now, there's always that skepticism and, oh, what's this guy going to do? And, oh, he's going to get roasted. And there's so many pirates out there. They're going to make him walk the plank on every deal. This isn't going to last, and we'll see what happens with Rantanen here if they can get him re-signed. But I mean, this one kind of looks like a Picasso for Carolina, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's the old line. Sometimes you paint a Picasso, sometimes you paint a barn. It looks like he's painted a Picasso in this one here.
And somebody in the chat noted too, part of all this is the restraint that he showed in free agency. Obviously, Gensel goes, but he also didn't sign Brett Pesce. He also didn't sign Brady Shea. So he's kind of like kept his ducks in a row to position himself to make this massive move.
And at this point, to further that point, like if I'm the other 31 GMs in the league, I'm terrified of Eric Tulsky because he is a genius who could literally do any other job in the world, and he's choosing to do this one because he likes it. That he's smarter than you. I would be terrified to deal with that.
But he looks like a member of Oingo Boingo, so that fucks with your head as well.
Didn't you do the music in Pretty in Pink? Was that you, Eric Tulsky? Was that not you?
He wrote the Simpsons theme. People don't know this about Eric Tulsky.
But that's the thing. Like Cliff Fletcher used to always have the reputation. Like the old line about Cliff Fletcher was, if you shake hands with Cliff Fletcher, count your fingers afterwards. Right? Like, I like this is still early to say that about Tulsky, but he very much does have that. Like, I know there aren't any pirates in the NHL anymore. Everyone's got to do the right thing. And I'm going to help you with this deal. No one does trades. Brian Burke would always say, when he first started, the way you judge the trade is, did the other general manager get fired? And if the other general manager got fired, that was a good trade for me. It was your job to try to have as many GM kills as possible, have as many pelts as possible behind you. How many GMs did you get fired? That doesn't exist anymore. Everybody allegedly tries to help one another. But so far, I think Tulsky's really distinguished himself here as being one of the lead candidates for the Jim Gregory Award. I think you're bang on about that.
Sean, I cannot wait for us to put up a video titled Eric Tulsky is a Gangster. And it is just the last 5 minutes of this. People clicking around. It looks like Marek's there. Eric Tulsky's a gangster. Let's find out about this.
Somebody.
Eric Tulsky is going to suck your blood.
We all silly like the mayor.